there was a very big spiritual time in me when I had left New York for the first time and I lived in Santa Barbara. I got heavily into scuba diving. I was just away from it all. I read so many different things. Just this thing, Krishnamurti, that came up recently, Flight of the Eagle. And that all these things stuck with me and inside of me. And I think what happens is you can't take for granted the things that are nurturing you. They can come out so much longer or later in your life. And I think those things might be dormant for a while, but they're there. And I think for me, I always kept my passion alive with things. I think that's what it was, is even though I couldn't necessarily act on them, they were always there and I was always aware of them, if that makes any sense.
Welcome to the Wisdom We Share podcast, where ancient truths and modern intelligence weave together to inspire, ground, and shape us for a wiser, awakened life. I'm Anjani Amrit.
And I'm Robin Wald. And together we bring you fascinating conversations from the worlds of spirituality, science, and human behavior, so you can connect to your own inner wisdom, joy, and clarity, elevating the way you actually live your life. All right. I am so excited for us to have Matthew Biancaniello on our show today. Matthew has manifested many professions and adventures throughout his life, and I've known Matthew since I'm 17 years old. So I'll let listeners do the math on that, but I've known you longer in my life than I haven't, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. And I've seen you go through so many different career paths and growth moments and challenges, and who you are today, I feel, is like the very best version of yourself. You keep growing and manifesting more and more, and you're so inspiring to me. I know you're going to inspire our listeners, so I'm happy to have you here
Thank
today.
you so much.
Absolutely. So Matthew has experienced countless failures and successes. But in his most recent journey, he's come to find both his calling and his purpose. And I've seen that. I'm excited to hear more about that today. Matthew is the author of Eat Your Drink and is a one-of-a-kind chef, cocktail creator, and ultra marathon swimmer. He offers adventurous tasting experiences from farm to table using seasonal organic foods, unique ingredients, and unlikely pairings, creating extraordinary tasting sprees coined Eat Your Drink. Matthew offers consulting, private events, classes, and leads international culinary tours. And when he's not creating or swimming, he loves spending time with his 11-year-old twin boys, especially traveling with them and exploring new places. So Matthew, welcome to the Wisdom We Share.
That's a great intro. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
So great to be here. Thank you.
Matthew, I'm going to dive in because I don't know you from Adam. And I'm super keen on understanding what drives you. You're half Italian, you're half Greek. I'm also half Greek.
Oh, wow.
English. Yeah.
Wait, you live in Australia? So do you live in the Greek area of Australia, like Melbourne, right?
No, Sydney.
Sydney? Oh, okay. Is Melbourne more Greek or no?
It's definitely got a lot more Greek people in it. Yes, there's a bigger community there.
Okay.
And you lost your Malibu bar in 2018, just as you opened it in the fires. There's a lot happened in your life. Mm-hmm. And I just want to start by asking you, what is it that drives you and where does your passion come from? Because I know for me, the Cypriots are super passionate people when it comes to food and drinking and getting together. What is inside of you that drives you to do all that you do?
It's an excellent question. And I'm always still discovering that. I don't know if it's something that is always necessarily right there, but I do think that if I'm half Greek, half Italian, but I was brought up much more on my Greek side. And I really, really got to witness my grandparents kind of recreate Greece in Manchester, New Hampshire. They grew everything in their garden. That's really what I attribute my passion to, the way that they were about food, the way that they were about each other, about the community. And I think for me, because I've gone through so much, there's a resilience that started inside of me. And especially in the last 5 years, it was even more devastating. And I think also having, you have twin boys or children at all, there's a huge sense of responsibility in so many different layers of that, not just financially taking care of them or but also wanting to be connected to them, wanting to be a model for them, wanting them to have they already have a better life than ever. They're already further ahead than I ever was. I learned so much from them. And I was just so lucky to be introduced to nature and to the ocean and all these things when I was younger, to travel, all these things that I was very, very fortunate to be exposed to that are deep inside of me. And it's very, very interesting because I was looking back, you talk about the swimming. I mean, I first bought a book from this woman who swam Catalina, I think her name was Peggy Lee Dean, in 1996. I was living in Santa Barbara. I was scuba diving at the time. I was working for Jacques Cousteau's original producer. And I wanted to do that back then. I was 28 years old. And then I was starting to train for it 12 years later when I was 40. And then I became a bartender. And then it was impossible. And the fact that I'm doing it now, so now you're going from 96 to almost 30 years later.
Ooh, Saturn return. That's
Saturn return.
Yeah.
Saturn return. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's something that, I work with Robin, as a coach and as a friend, but it's one of those things that I'm deeply, deeply interested in. I think that just being very, very aware of my journey. And, what's really interesting, I think it was Joseph Campbell that said this. He said, you're going to look back in your life and you're going to see that it actually was this orchestra, and this thing was being orchestrated for you all along. You can't tell when you're going through it. But when you get older, which is one of the luxuries of being older, you can kind of look back and you start to see these patterns and these connections of what your choices have been and your decisions have been and the things that you've been interested in. They're all connected. They might not have ended up there, but they're all connected. And I was very lucky too there was a very big spiritual time in me when I had left New York for the first time and I lived in Santa Barbara. I got heavily into scuba diving. I was just away from it all. I read so many different things. Just this thing, Krishnamurti, that came up recently, Flight of the Eagle. And that all these things stuck with me and inside of me. And I think what happens is you can't take for granted the things that are nurturing you. They can come out so much longer or later in your life. And I think those things might be dormant for a while, but they're there. And I think for me, I always kept my passion alive with things. I think that's what it was. Is even though I couldn't necessarily act on them, they were always there and I was always aware of them, if that makes any sense.
If you're looking for a trusted, skillful expert to support your deeper work of self-exploration and evolution in your life, relationships, business, or spiritual growth, we invite you to reach out anytime.
This is the deeper work Robin and I love to do beyond the podcast. Impactful mentorship, coaching, spiritual guidance, astrology in a one-on-one setting. All the links are sitting right there for you in the show notes. Yeah, absolutely. You said something really powerful. You said, you can't forget the things that nurture you, which says to me that it's likely, and I'm using my spidey senses here as well, that you maybe didn't get that growing up, that you didn't get the nurturing in ways where you probably or maybe needed it. And that's the thing you cherish now, and that's the thing that you infuse into everything you do.
Absolutely, yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My mom was an alcoholic. My brother was 5 years older than I was, so I didn't really have that kind of brotherly relationship. My father worked a lot. So my grandparents, that was my refuge. If I didn't have that, I don't think I would be the same person. I think when I remember just being 16 years old, it wasn't that I was so religious, but I remember being 16 years old and most kids on their spring break would be hanging out and drinking and doing stuff. And I went to my grandparents' house and spent Holy Week there and went to church every night. Why did I go to church every night? Because it was peaceful. It was beautiful. I loved seeing the roses and the flowers and hearing the music and and when Christ has risen and the resurrection of Easter, just lighting that candle and taking it all the way home and lighting your altar at home. So it was the food, it was the way they really had tradition. And I don't think that, that's definitely much more lost today than it ever is. But I think that if I didn't have that nurturing, and I remember it was really when my grandmother died, that's when something really died inside of me. I don't think I was the same person.
How old were you when that?
I was kind of old. I mean, what was I, 23 or 24? I can't remember. But it was so significant because when she died, there was two major things that I loved about it. Was she used to send me $50 every year for my birthday. And I remember I got her letter and card after she died. She died 2 days before my birthday. And in the mail came that letter and that $50 or whatever. And I remember at the wake as well, I remember it was so dramatic because I don't think I've ever cried like this again. When my grandmother died, when we got to the house, it took me 2 hours to get in the house because I could feel her and feel the hurt and feel all of that. And when we had the wake too, I remember I waited for everybody to leave. And I took this picture that she loved of mine and I went and I stuck it right under her heart before she went into the coffin. So she was in the coffin and I know that got buried with her. So it was those kinds of things that was a very, very deep connection. But yes, to really simply say is that I don't think I would be who I am today, or at least would have had as many aspirations if I didn't have that nurturing aspect of it. Because I think I would have been a lot more lost. And I think I did get a little bit lost once she died as well, for sure.
I find that when we have trauma in our life, significant trauma, we can go either way. We can rebel and, go off the planet, or we can dig deep into discipline and our own kind of religion, faith, spirituality, because it's a safe harbor for us. Like you said, it's grounding. I mean, I definitely relate. I was raised in a family of domestic violence, and I'm an incredibly disciplined person. So I fully relate to what you're saying. And I think a lot of people listening to this will relate as well. It makes us very driven. It makes us have a certain kind of passion and purpose that people who didn't have that kind of trauma growing up, they take things a little bit more lightly. They have a lot more fun. I'm looking at Robin here. Robin, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I say this all the time. Like, I know and I completely honor that I am super, super lucky. I have so many clients, astrology coaching clients, and I have to say I'm probably like in the top 5% of like good luck when it comes to the family that I was born into and my childhood, right? I'm grateful I didn't experience those kinds of traumas. I had loving parents, loving grandparents, parents who were educators, this like really charmed kind of upbringing. So very different from where you began. But I also think that, at any point, anybody in their life, when we're faced with real challenge or struggle, is when we kind of have to meet ourselves in those dark places and figure out who we are, who we want to become through this crisis. And
Absolutely.
it teaches us a lot about our resilience, right? And those are the moments where discipline really counts. Or maybe we lose all discipline and have to hit rock bottom, but the way we bring ourselves back. So Matthew,
No,
looks
I
like you.
think, and also I just also say that everybody experiences trauma in life. It doesn't have to be some death or domestic violence or alcohol. There's traumas in everybody. We all experience that to some degree. And I know that for sure, just sharing with different people. I 100% agree with you, though, when it comes to trauma, what that can do to somebody. And on a superficial level, or the superficial answer is like, wanting to control something, wanting to be, I'm going to take care of this. But I think it's so much deeper than that because it's also very common, which I found too. I had major back surgery a couple of years ago, and I think, I had my L4 and L5. I had a fusion of that, a compression. I've got 4 screws in me. And I think when I came out in that wheelchair and I could see my kids look at me, I was just like, God, I could either take a left right now or I could take a right. And I'm going to take a right. I'm too young. You know what I mean? And that is what started the whole process of healing, because you can have these emotional traumas, but the emotional traumas sometimes will manifest in physical traumas in some way. And it's so much easier to say to someone, "Oh, I'm going to address this physical trauma. I'm going to heal this. I'm going to put a cast on this. I'm going to do this." But they're all related. So once you really dive into something on a physical level and try to heal that, it's inevitable that the emotional and spiritual will come up, because you cannot just, there's no such thing as having discipline and just doing it. It's all of the doubts come in, all of the past comes in, all of the things that want to stop you. They all come into those things.
Mm.
So that's my experience with that.
I'm curious, tell me about what led you to the ultra marathon swimming. So obviously you talked about when you were younger and coming to
I
Santa
always
Barbara
wanted to do
and
it.
the
Yeah.
ocean, right? So,
Yeah.
and I know you, before you got into the ocean swimming in the cold and long distance, you were doing pool swimming and you were also doing ice plunges. But
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, you just spoke about the healing of like diving into the physical, but also the emotional, how that intertwines, and the spiritual. Tell us about the ultramarathon swimming and how that kind of has affected or changed you or grown you on
Yeah. I
all
mean,
those levels.
it's the number one thing that I'm
Yeah.
passionate about right now.
Yeah.
And that's so important to have in your life at any age, whoever what it is. And I think for me, I always wanted to do it. I was interested in it 30 years ago. I swam when I was in high school for a couple of years. And then I did some triathlons and I was very, very good at it. And then once I moved to New York and I was in a different space, it's just, I just lost that sense of that. And I know what that is all about now too. And so when I got back into it, for me, it was just a way to heal. So the only thing I started doing the cold plunging because that's what I needed to do. I couldn't really move that much. It was something that I was looking into. There's a lot of benefits from it, mostly dopamine. When you're recovering from an injury, the dopamine that you get from that is the high that you can't get from exercise because you're not exercising.
Mhm.
And then I got back into swimming. It's like I have to do something to feel good and strong again. And when I started doing it, I realized, wow, you seem further along than you were 30 years ago. Like you started to do this and you didn't seem like you seem stronger now for some reason. I don't know what that was. And then I was like, you know what? You always wanted to do Alcatraz. I remember you remember my friend Marcus. We talked about doing that years ago. I'm like,
Mhm.
you're going to do Alcatraz. And here's the thing. You're going to follow through with this, because what happened is I trained years ago for the New York City Marathon. And I remember I did really well in training. I'd gotten up to 17 miles. And just that last month, it was so hot in New York and I was so busy. And I was like, I gave it up. And it was so important, even though this was just a mile and a half, I was just like, you're going to see this through. And that's really what all these things are about,
Mm.
is when you see something through to the end, no matter what. That's really what discipline is. It's like you're doing this no matter what. And I've had those moments in my life where something was so important to me or so passionate. I remember, like, I'm going to do this no matter what the circumstances are that
Mm.
come. And that's what happened. So once I did Alcatraz, and I did it without a wetsuit, and I think I mean, I couldn't believe how I finished, and 200 people didn't finish. That was the gateway to all of this. And then that's when I said, okay, you're going to do Catalina next year. And that's what I've been training for. I'm about 4.5 months away, and I got a coach, and that has changed my life in so many ways, because that is true discipline. You cannot just show up for a 21-mile swim in the ocean. You just can't. And there's too many elements involved. So the discipline that takes, and the days that I've had to put into it, even like last week was a huge breakthrough. I had to do speed week and I did 6 days. And I remember I had to swim 6,000 yards, which is, a little over 3 miles. And I had to do most of that by myself, because the people that I swim in the ocean with, they don't swim that far. But what got over my fear is I found a group that swam in the ocean. That was my biggest fear. I was
Mm.
afraid of sharks. And once I started swimming them the first 2 months, after looking in the corner thinking I saw a shark, this is the greatest metaphor and analogies you can do for life. It's the same thing. We all have these blocks in life that keep us from doing things. And discipline is really not listening to that mind. It's showing up no matter what. There's no such thing as being ready for anything. You're never going to be ready for anything. You're never going to be perfect. So the consistency is how much I've grown, and how now it's the consistency and the discipline has made me free. And you hear about this all the time in athletes and other people, and you're just like, yeah, whatever. I'm not built like that. Everyone says, oh, I'm not built like that. I'm not built like that. But everybody is. They are built for discipline. They might not be able to run as fast as somebody else or do it, or I'm not going to, but they're built for discipline. We're
So
all capable of it.
I love this
that.
so much. I love this so much. And there's the voice inside of me saying, but I'm not really.
Yeah.
Not me. No.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's the biggest voice.
I have discipline around certain things. I really do. I have excellent discipline around certain things. But I remember a while back, I got inspired by Jocko Willink,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah. He's
yeah,
amazing.
and David Goggins and ultramarathon runner. But
Yeah.
Jocko Willink, his whole thing, exactly what you just said, that the discipline, the showing up no matter what, every day, consistently, really is the key to
It
unlock your
is.
freedom.
Yeah.
And, he does that whole thing where he wakes up super early and takes a picture of his watch and posts
Yeah.
it. And it's like every day, no, there are certain things I have discipline around, but other things that I'm just like, I just can't get myself. So what's the wisdom for you? What's worked for you that helps you show up even when that voice is like, I don't want to show up. It's too hard. I'm too tired. I
Well, I'll
need.
tell you, yeah, that's a great question. And it's also my routine that I do before I even swim that really helps me. One thing I really got from Jocko too, which I loved, is this is so important what he said. He goes, you have to wake up every day like you're back to zero.
Hmm.
And I think the biggest thing people do in life is, I just ran 5 miles yesterday. I just worked my ass off yesterday. No, this is a whole new day. And and you guys will probably know this, and I don't know this, but this is what I heard even more recent. It's even more beautiful from some monk, and I don't know who it is. He says, you have to look at your life as one day. And that's the most beautiful thing that resonated with me recently, because this is all one day. You're born, you do this, and you die, and it all happens. This is one long day. So at the end of a day, when I'm thinking, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, or I didn't get to this, I'm like, it's still the same day. It's still the same day. So you're going to do it in 8 hours, but it's still the same day, and it's not going to take away. Now you have to change that when you're doing other things. You can't say, oh, I'm going to do this later. But what changed so much for me recently is this is all one day. And I love that. It's beautiful. What it is I've never had a bad morning. Now, I've had mornings where I wake up, I don't feel right. But when I do my routine, which is, I get up between 3 or 4, I do my meditation. First thing I do is I write my gratitude journal. I write three things, 2 things I'm looking forward to. One, I wish I did differently the day before. Then I send love to 3 people. It's usually people I don't like, so it's people that I have issues with and trouble with. Yeah. And then I write all the things that I want to manifest in my life. So I do that. And then I do a 10-minute meditation. And then I do my stretches, really, which is really the yoga, different yoga things, stretches, all those things. Yoga changed my life too. I did that 20 years ago. And, I suffered from an eating disorder for, a good 20 years of my life. And pretty much in 6 months, and I was just a binge eater. I wasn't throwing up. I wasn't not eating. It was more about just overeating. It was gone. It's not that I didn't still eat or whatever. It was like that obsession with food went away instantaneously within 6 months of doing yoga. So that was something that I practiced very much until I had my kids religiously for a good, 10, 12 years. And I still do it, but it's not the practice I had back then was 6 to 9 times a week. It was incredible, but I could do that, So all of these things that I've done, they all add up. But it's that routine, no matter what. And then the first thing I do, I'm not supposed to have coffee right away, but I do have my coffee right away, and I walk my dog outside. So I'm barefoot. So I've got the grounding and the serotonin happening. So I've got all these stimuli. By the time 5:30 comes along or 6 and my kids are waking up, you couldn't trigger me if you tried. That's how you feel. But that's the thing, is it has to be in repetition, because there are days it's like, is this even working? And of course it's working, because it's, if you don't do it, what happens? It's not, oh, if you do it, what happens? It's if you don't do it, what happens? And we always focus on, if we do this, something's going to happen. It's what, if you don't do it, what's going to happen? Does that make
Matthew,
sense?
you are full of wisdom. I mean, and I'm literally seeing you in another life as a monk. Just FYI.
There
It's
is
funny
I
you
have a
mentioned
very
that.
monk part of me. That's what's so interesting. I really do. I remember it. I just, yeah, I do have a monk part of me for sure.
Yeah. When
There
I
is a,
woke up this morning, I got that intuitive hit that
mm,
this guy's been a monk in another life. And it's funny that you mentioned the word monk as we're interviewing you. And monks do get up at 3 a.m. and you're
yeah.
getting up at 3 a.m. And to me, this is also a past life influencing this life as you're coming into this life, and in beautiful ways. I saw you tending a garden as a monk in another life.
Mm.
And I want to ask you now about the cocktails you create, and the earth that you bring into them, the food that you bring, the plants that you bring in. I'm vegan. I don't drink alcohol.
Okay.
Uh,
I don't
and
drink, by
so
the way. I never really
yeah,
drank. I never really cared about it.
that fascinates me.
Yeah.
And then yet you do all this amazing, creative, innovative things with plants and with alcohol. What inspires you the most about that? And what would you make me, being vegan and
For
and
alcohol or for
not
food?
drinking alcohol,
I know for
offer?
food easily. So what's so interesting about that is, I just needed a job 17 years ago. So I turned 40. I had just gotten married, all these things, and I just needed a job. And I happened to know the woman who ran all the bars at the Roosevelt Hotel in Los Angeles. And I knew her through yoga. I never would have gotten that job. I mean, my first night I had to duck down and say to the bartender next to me, "What's in a Cosmopolitan?" I mean, that's how little I knew. But within a year and a half, I was in the New York Times, LA Times, and CNN. And this is what I know about myself, which is I have to harness this energy, because I can manifest anything if I'm really 100% focused on. That's what's happening with the swimming right now, right? But what's interesting about the alcohol and that is that was a calling. And I really understood a year and a half in the difference between a calling and a purpose. This is something that really kind of comes out of the blue. The universe is using you for something greater than you. And it's something that you can't do it. It's taking over. It's taking over. So my whole point to that is I started making these cocktails. I didn't really drink. I didn't know much about alcohol. So what did I do? I went to the farmer's market, because that was something I was inspired by and knew, and started putting those things into the glass. And it wasn't like I was trying to fill a void in the market, like, oh, there's nobody out there doing that. It was the beginning of the movement. It was very authentic what I was doing. When I look back, I was like, oh yeah, that was very authentic, because you were just trying to survive out there, you know? And then what happened is this huge passion took over. Everyone didn't understand. Like, you don't drink, you go to bed at 8 and wake up at 3, and now you're going to bed at 3 and waking up at 7. That doesn't make any sense. But what happened was there was something really driving me. It was in a year and a half into doing this. I remember there was a woman right in front of me, and she was taking pictures of my drinks, and the way she was savoring everything and the excitement. I said, oh my God, I know exactly what you've been doing. And I stopped myself. I said, for the last year and a half, you have been unconsciously or subconsciously re-scripting your relationship to alcohol and making it beautiful and something that you savored. And as soon as I had that awareness, every memory, because it was some bad memories, my mom having 17 bottles of booze under her, empty bottles under her bed, but every single one of those memories was gone forever. So it was deeper than, oh, I'm making drinks. It was deeper than I was making drinks from the farmer's market. It was connected to, I wanted to change the culture of how people drank and how they looked at alcohol. And then what happens is with that, it really got me closer to the purpose. Well, the purpose is also is big time is my boys for sure. But it got me into food, because what I was doing was already so culinary, and I don't really care about alcohol. But when I started to get into food, and I had the restaurant, and then, during COVID and so forth, I opened the restaurant in my house. That's when I really came alive. because now it was something that I remember people they loved how I would put little things together at my house. It wasn't really cooking. It was just how I put things together. And now it was coming full circle. I remember when I got into acting, and I remember I had made this like 27 ingredient salad for Thanksgiving, and I made my own croutons and stuff. And I remember my cousin saying to me, he goes, "I think you missed your calling. I think you're supposed to be a chef." And I got upset by that because she just seemed like this snooty lawyer, that was trying to tell me get out of acting type of thing, right? But the thing is there was something interesting about that, because when I was younger, my first job was working in this kitchen at this place in Cambridge, and I remember saying to myself, I don't feel safe around food because of my eating. I didn't feel safe. So there was something that was the barrier that kept me away from it. And I think that's what's so difficult. I think of people, what happens in people in life is these things pull you away, but they might be meant for you. It's not the timing, or you haven't healed enough to be able to say, almost like relationships. Everything is relationships. You're not at the vibration of that relationship yet. And I think that's what happened with food, is I was not at the relationship of the vibration of that food. I still didn't look at it as what it really is. If that makes sense.
If there's some topic you're curious about, or an issue that maybe you're struggling with and seeking some insight and guidance around, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us either through our social links or on our web pages, and pop us your questions so we can discuss them and offer some wisdom on an upcoming episode of the podcast.
It does. What you're doing, what I'm hearing, and it's really profound, is you're transforming all of the pain, all of the trauma, all of the things that have held you in separation, a sense of abandonment, whatever it's been for you. And you've systematically, and often you said like unconsciously, but systematically and more consciously now, healed all those wounds in yourself and lifted everything to its highest frequency, its highest vibration. And then not only that, but you've done it to such an extent and such a level that you are a way shower. That's what you are. You are here to show people the way how to heal. And people who are householders, not being a monk in this lifetime in a cave, but by being very much in the public eye and showing people the way how to heal. It's really profound, really profound.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your film then. It's called Breadbasket. Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, it's loose. It's basically loose. So it's loosely based on my own experience. And my issue was not just overeating. It was really just kind of like the breadbasket is a colloquial term that they use in New York for like your stomach. I remember my father used to say, they used to say, we're going to tap you in your breadbasket. I don't know if you grew up with that, Robin, or not.
Never heard of that.
But my father, wow. His generation, that was a very colloquial term, for somebody's stomach. So I had this obsession, and it's still a little bit today, but, grabbing my stomach, touching it, or, seeing if it looks any different after I eat, that kind of thing. So what happened was I had done a one-man show in New York called Purge, and it was really, really out there, because what I did was I didn't care. I just did everything that I ever wanted to do without worrying about what the audience thought. I wasn't trying to do anything but purge. And one of the biggest pieces that resonated with people was a piece that was called The Breadbasket. And I was in a psychiatrist's office talking about my stomach. And what happened is people kept coming up to me after the show. I ran it I think it was like for 3 weeks. I said, I've never seen a man like talk about eating disorder like that. It's always women or the way, the men, it's not really in that depth. And I was like, I think this is what I should make a film about. I've always wanted to make a film. And I made a film, and it was called The Breadbasket, but it was also shot in a way called Dogma 95. It was a movement that was happening with Lars Ventura at the time. And I actually I was an official number 29 out of the 34. So there's only been 34 official Dogma films. I even got written about it in a book called Dogma Uncut. They wrote about my film, but it was very much about my journey as an actor a little bit, and also just my feelings around the food. And I was just thinking about this image that naturally came out that I didn't even think about. And it will always stick with me is like, I used to take bread loaves and hollow them out and eat the bread. But the last image of me is I'm wearing the two loaves of bread as mittens, as I'm banging my stomach. And I just think about that image because it's really everything, you know what I mean? And also I have my mother in the beginning where I have this binge scene where I open up the refrigerator, and I had recorded a phone call with her and she didn't know. So you see me kind of pigging out and you have the voiceover of her. And it's, it's.
Yeah. I've seen the film a few times, and
Yeah.
it's an intense and difficult film to watch, right? It really goes so deep into emotional, deep emotional stuff. It's a hard film to watch, but so powerful.
Thank you.
You know, for as long as I've known you, you've always been a creative, and between the acting and the film, and then I just remember you with so many different hairstyles.
Yeah. Yeah. Mohawk.
The mohawk and the
Yeah.
shaved and the this and the
Yeah.
long hair and the
Yeah.
different facial hair, and you were always experimenting and creating, right? And the food I got to luckily experience one of your
Yes, that's right.
tastings. I
Oh
brought
yeah,
my
we need to. That's
daughter
right. I
and
need to
her
answer her
partner, and
question.
yeah, but
Yeah.
the food tasting in your house was it was amazing. Everything was beautiful, right?
Thank you.
Everything from the way you set up, the place settings and the way you taught us each thing that you presented. Right. And actually, I'll answer something for Anjani, and then you can answer it. So
Yeah.
I don't really drink much at all.
Yeah.
And I was
But you had a
concerned.
little
Remember,
bit
I
that night,
told
right?
you, yeah, because I told you I was like, I don't really drink. I'm concerned about drinking, and you're like, don't worry, this and that. And I'm also vegetarian. You really catered, very individually. Like everybody else was eating all the fish and all the meats
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And you were making separate dishes for me to taste. And it was, everything was amazing.
Thank
My
you.
favorite was you did some kind of rhubarb infused alcohol, but
Oh
that
yeah.
I still
Yeah.
think about that to
Yeah.
this day. I'm like, I
Yeah.
need to learn how to make that
Yeah.
because
That's
that was
very
the
easy.
most delicious thing I've ever
I can say
tasted.
I'll send that to you because it's
Yeah.
so easy because it's actually now's the time for rhubarb.
I know. I just got
Yeah.
rhubarb for the first
Yeah.
time
I'll
this
send it to
season
you.
and baked a
Very, very
pie.
simple.
Yeah, great,
Very, very
amazing.
simple. I really appreciate you saying that. And that was another thing that was born out of my cocktails, which is what made my cocktails experience what people still resonate today was, and I was, like I said, it happened to be this way, is I didn't have a menu. And everything from the farmer's market was on the bar. So what happened is think about doing that 4 or 5 days a week for 4 years. The amount of encyclopedia of senses that are inside of me is limitless, right? It's limitless. But the real reason is like, this woman came in one time and she said, "Can you make me something sweet but not too sweet?" So I made her this drink, and she said, "That's the best drink I've had." She goes, "What's in it?" I go, "Well, it's got gin and strawberries and balsamic vinegar." She goes, "Balsamic vinegar? I hate balsamic vinegar. Can you make me something else?" I said, "You just told me it was the best drink you ever had." She goes, "I know, but I hate balsamic vinegar." So what I realized is how much people got these things in their head, and they were tasting with their head, because what I was doing was putting it into drinks. They couldn't think of these things in drinks, and then I would love changing it because what happens is you could change the structure and the texture in a drink. That was so I loved about it, that you could get somebody to like something that they didn't like. So if someone came in to me, I always loved, and they would say, "Okay, make me anything but no tomatoes." I'm like, "Well, I'm going to make you something with tomatoes." I said, "Hey, I just told you I don't like tomatoes." I said, "But you haven't had it in a drink this way. Let me take the texture out and do this. It's really just a fruit." And then they love it.
Mm.
So I got to have this kind of synergy with people where I was like, why am I asking them? You know what I mean? I'm the one doing this. Like, stop asking them and just present it to them. And I got to the point where I didn't want to tell anybody what was in it until they told me they loved it. So that's what happened with that. And I think I got so used to catering to every individual. If someone came in and I could tell they didn't like it, but they said it was good, I would rip that out of their hand. They'd be horrified. Like, "What, are you going to throw alcohol away?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "I'm not going to make this until you're happy with it." So with the food was the same way. It was like, oh, now I'm doing a tasting menu, which is even more difficult. So there's some things I can't do, but I was open if someone was vegetarian to respond to you, Emily, is you're vegan. One of my favorite dishes that I do is this, and I think you might have had it, Robin. It's a lion's mane mushroom that I braise with like tamari, onion, and olive oil. It's very simple, but when you braise it, they're so fat and juicy. And I put that on top of rice, sushi rice that I cook in coconut oil, and it's cooked in the ocean water from the Channel Islands that we get out here. So all the salt is coming from the ocean. It's not coming from, I don't put any salt in it. And I love the connection of the ocean to it. But then now I have a vegan person who doesn't eat seafood, but is experiencing the ocean. So I love that. That was, that's how I looked at things like that.
Can you tell us
This is
about,
wisdom.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, well,
That's absolutely, that is wisdom. That is wisdom right there. Is you are an alchemist, and you are literally channeling higher guidance doing that. And you're doing it so well. You're doing it, I don't know, unconsciously, but it's just such a beautiful thing to listen to. And it just really is drawing me in. It's like, wow, just the way that you see the world is so profound and it's so rare. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I was just going to also say that I know that some German filmmakers recently did a whole thing where they followed you out on a swim and in the ocean and collecting saltwater or seaweed and other ingredients that you source directly from the ocean, which is like mind blowing. Like, I don't think anybody else on the planet is doing what you're doing with this. It's incredible.
Robert, thank you. But what's so fascinating about that is, I got the ocean water from them, and then she filmed the dinners. I'm swimming from that island August 7th. So I'm actually doing that swim before my Catalina swim, which is half the distance, a 12-mile swim. And that's going to be a training swim. So I'm actually going to be swimming from the place that I get the salt water, the ocean water from.
Yeah, fabulous. Tell us about how parenting is also a spiritual practice or challenges you to grow and learn more about yourself.
It's very challenging, for sure. The big challenge right now. But listen, I think the biggest thing that helped me with parenting is a sense of getting out of yourself and a selflessness and putting your attention and being present. You're dealing with people who don't have a history with you, which is really great, or they don't have a history with themselves, so they can't project onto you. So it's very pure what's coming out of them, right? It's very pure. And you have to kind of listen to that, pay attention to that, maybe the observations that they make, the things they say about you. But for me, I don't know. I never wanted to be a father. And then when I became a father, I really understood it. And twins was very difficult. I mean, for the first 4 years, it's really impossible. And I remember when they were 2, I remember I was traveling while I was doing this show, and I got on the plane for the first time, and I said, God, can you please let this plane go down? Like, I've done the best I can. They're not going to remember me. I'm not cut out for this. I mean, that's how dark it felt,
Wow.
And I got through that, and, lots of things happened to get to that point. But once they hit 4, it was different. It was manageable. But I put so much energy into them, and I still do, maybe even too much. But food was a big part of it in the beginning, and for sure. And then experiences, giving them experiences. I did so many things with them. Like, just forget about traveling where I've gone out of the country, just like the hikes and taking them to the ocean and to the beach and all of these things. And that's the thing that I can't stress enough is you do things for your kids and everything, but the things that I remember, we went to Italy last year. I think about that trip almost every day. There's nothing like the experiences. And it was just the 3 of us, just happened to be the 3 of us last year. And how that unfolded, but it really brings you back to being present. And also, again, with the swimming, you can talk to your kids a million times about something, but they need to see you they need to see you be your word and see you follow through with things. because they're looking at your actions. They're looking at that. So that's another thing that kind of exemplified my swimming. Even though they don't really get to see it that much, they know that I'm gone in the morning. They know I'm coming back. And I send them little clips. That to me, my father was a marathon runner, and that did stick out to me. He was in the Navy, so he was disciplined as well. But it was different. He didn't really have. I think for me, I want to be able to work, do that, but also be there for them as well. I want it all to be whole, I guess. I
You
don't know
know,
if things can be balanced. You know how you talk about, like, you talked about David Goggins too, about balance. Sometimes when you're trying to do something great, it's not about I didn't have balance in my work when I was doing that, I achieved, yeah, I achieved this reputation, but that's all I did. It was way before I had kids and all that. So how can you do that and still be present for all the other parts in your life? Another thing I wanted to tell you that's really, really important that I learned too, that drives me a lot, is Andrew Huberman talks about this a lot, and he talked about it specifically with David Goggins, is the more you do difficult things, so those are the things you do not want to do, okay? You stimulate a part of your brain called the mid-cingulate anterior cortex, okay? It's a part of your brain that gets larger every time you do something you don't want to do. So it's big in athletes. And they've connected that part of the brain to the will to live. And what's great about that is the more you develop that, I don't want to do this, but you did it anyway, the more you will build that muscle and that will to keep doing difficult things. And that's what's so important, especially as we get older, right? We want to start kind of not shrinking, but we start to naturally, like, kind of pull away a little bit from life, and doing difficult things, which is the swimming and the cold was in the beginning as well. I know that area is getting stimulated, and I still have so much growing to do and learning to do, and things that have not been healed properly. So it's nice to know that I can take what I'm doing and still say, okay, you're doing this. Like you said, there's some things you're disciplined, right? How do I take this discipline for something you're so passionate about? And you don't have to be so passionate, but how do I do that? How do I make that work in another area?
yeah,
Because I think that's what's really important.
Yeah, this
I
is
talk
such
about
great wisdom. Sorry, I
it's
just want to
great.
say amazing wisdom. And I'm personally like, I get to talk to you regularly, and I'm learning and, really absorbing new stuff based on what you're teaching us today. So really deep bows and thank you,
Thank you.
Anjani.
Yeah, I talk about you have to jump out of planes every day. You've got to jump out of the
Yeah.
plane every day and do something that scares you every day, because
Yeah.
I know that too. I'm in my mid 50s, and life shrinks. If you don't keep pushing that boundary
Yeah.
and pushing it out, everything starts to shrink and life gets smaller. And Sadhguru talks about you can either live life or die in increments. And I think you're a great
That's
role
beautiful.
model for people, that you're really living your life as if, day zero. I love that, what you said.
Yeah.
I think it's a great Buddhist practice to contemplate death every day, not to be morbid, but to actually live life, to think
Absolutely.
this was my last day and
Yeah.
genuinely live from that space.
Yeah.
Then we are going to be more motivated. We are going to be able to crank up that, mode of discipline. And you are a walking demonstration of that, walking, talking, living demonstration of that.
Thank
And
you.
I think it's profound. It's a very rare person that has that, that's walking and talking around, in everyday life. And you're not in robes, but you may as well be for what you're doing, the system that you're bringing.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
as we wrap up, I'm just curious, what else is on the horizon for you? Obviously, you have Catalina coming up, and I know you've spoken, there's like a trifecta of swims. Is it the English Channel is the third one,
Yeah, so
or?
there's a couple of things. So
It's so cold there.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
so
Well,
cold
I've
there.
qualified for the English Channel twice now. I've done two
Wow.
swims recently. So I did one was Coronado, which is 11 and a half mile swim around this island in San Diego. And I did that because I needed, why did I do? Oh, I needed to do, I think I needed to do a 5 hour swim. I was like, okay, I'll do that. I did it in 5 hours and 22 minutes, but it was 57 degrees that whole time. and I forget what that is in Celsius, but I qualified for the English Channel. Then I went back and did a 10-mile swim, which took me 6 hours because it was so rough. And there's two federations for the English Channel, and I qualified for that too, because you're supposed to do 6 hours under 61 degrees. But what's interesting, Robin, I think for me is, I have a coach for this, which is really a great thing because I would love to still figure out how to do this with you or just in general, whereas like every week she sends me a schedule and I just like stick to it. Now, I wasn't sticking to it before. She'd send me a schedule and I'd kind of do my own thing. And then I'd do my big swim and be like, I kind of suck. What's going on here? Like you swim almost double of what she told you to swim. But it wasn't about how much I was swimming, it was how I was doing it, right? So since I have stuck to exactly what she has given me, I have seen myself blossom to the fact that last week, like I said, when I did that 3.5 miles in the ocean, and it was rough, but I was just like, oh my God, you really have grown. And that's the thing is you don't get these things as much when you're dealing with the emotional, like these small increments. It's hard to feel that, but you want to be able to feel that. What I felt swimming, you do have those moments like, oh yeah, I reacted differently. I never would have done that 3 years ago. So those are the equivalent to those things. But to answer your question, now what's happening, and I haven't shared this with you, but now I have deterioration pretty severe in my C4 to C7. So I'm trying to not have surgery. Obviously, I'm having neck issues. I'm going to physical therapy, and like I said to the doctor, can I at least get the ketamine? He's like, yeah, you can definitely do that as long as But it's forced me to work on my technique even more. But what's happening now is this whole thing has opened up of what I want to do. So I do, if I do Anacapa in August and I do Catalina in September, I want to do the Scars, which is these 4 lakes, 40 miles in April in Arizona. And then I do New York around Manhattan next June or July. That's 28 miles. And then I do Lake Tahoe, 21 miles if I can the same summer. And that will complete the California Triple Crown, which is Anacapa, Catalina, and Lake Tahoe. And if I do New York, then I only have to do English Channel the following year, and I'll have the World Triple Crown. It's a Triple Crown of the world.
Well,
so those are my sites. But after I do those, Robin, I'll be closer to 60. Then I want to focus on a swim that no one's ever done before. That's really my dream, is to do a swim that no one's either attempted.
I hope you have that filmed. And because I feel like that has the potential to be one of these epic films, biographic, that just inspires everyone, like the guy who climbs El Capitan and, it's like those kinds of accomplishments feel bigger than the ordinary person. It feels like, whoa, I could never do that. And here you are telling us we all have the capacity for discipline. We all have the capacity to train ourselves and grow that part of our brain that does hard things and keep showing up with consistency and with discipline and with creativity and with purpose and calling. I mean, it's really, really inspiring. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. I love you.
Anjani. Oh, I love you too. Anjani, any final words or questions for Matthew?
Yes, by the way, it's 13.9 degrees Celsius. You were
Is that
swimming.
cold to you?
It's pretty cold, but it's pretty
It was
chilly.
10 Celsius. Cold. So one day I did 10 Celsius for 2 hours. And thank God I didn't know it was 10 Celsius because I was swimming and I was supposed to swim another mile and I kind of stopped and like, okay, you're not cold, but you're not moving either. I think you should get out. Your arms couldn't really move. And thank God I was near, close to the beach. I was just like, yeah, you're going to go in right now. And it was the first time that I walked away, back to my spot, but I'd been in for 2 hours at 52 degrees. And that's something I never would have been able to do.
But I also feel like that's a win, right? Some people might say, oh, I kind of failed. I didn't meet my goal that day. But it's a win because you trusted your intuition, which knew.
Yes.
Right? And you didn't, I think sometimes we override what our intuitive wisdom is telling us, and we don't want to listen to it, and then we get hurt or injure ourselves, or so it's like the fact that you really listened and you know enough about yourself and how your body feels, and that you were able to say, oh, I know what I need right now, and you did that.
Absolutely.
Is a huge win.
It was a double win, Robin, because it was exactly what you said. It was the intuition of getting out, and then I went to the pool and swam 2 miles to make up for it because I didn't do it in the ocean.
Of course you
You know,
did.
instead of saying, oh, it's not all together, it's not all together, it doesn't count. No, you can go swim the other 2 miles, you know?
Yeah.
And I think what happens is if people don't think they do something perfectly, they don't do it at all. Like, I'm not going to do that, you know, because I didn't do it perfectly.
Yeah.
I'd
That's what
say,
this teaches you.
yeah, I'd say what I've learned from you today, Matthew, is that it's important to stay present. It's important to honor what nourishes you. It's important to keep doing things that scare you every day. And family is important.
Yeah, right.
And this is about wisdom. Okay. Our podcast is all about the wisdom we share. Is there one last nugget of wisdom that you want to share to anyone who's listening, who's feeling really inspired, like Robin and I right now? A little
Well, listen,
gem.
I'm going to say one thing before the wisdom, because it goes back to when Robin was saying about filming this. That book by Krishnamurti, Flight of the Eagle, what was so powerful about that, Robin, that I read years ago when you said film this, it's not that I don't want to film this, but there is something very powerful. The whole idea of the flight of the eagle is the eagle leaves no trace. Okay? It leaves no trace. So we want to document everything, we want to show everybody, but there's a power. You know, I'm not saying, you know, I'm not going to do this for everything, but there is a power when you do something and you don't have to show it.
Yeah.
Huge power, especially something that's huge.
Yeah.
I don't know why. There's a part of me
involved.
that gets off on it, that it's just like, oh my God, this is all to myself and no one's going to know.
Mm, mm.
You
And
know?
I also completely valid and I really honor the wisdom in that, right? And it's
Yeah.
very Taoist also, right? Just like it's not about the ego, it's not about being
Yeah.
seen. It's, you know, the
Yeah.
master does everything and other people say, "Oh, we did it ourselves,"
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And right, there's a wisdom in that and a humility in that. And I also know you as this, you know, 6 planets in Gemini person. And Gemini has such a brilliant gift and mastery in communication and in teaching. And
Mm.
going like with what Anjani said is maybe you were a monk in a previous lifetime, but certainly in this lifetime, you have really amazing wisdom to teach. So I was just suggesting it as like
Yeah.
this is another
No,
opportunity
no,
to
no.
teach and
And you're right about
inspire
that.
because
And you're right
that's
about
that's
that.
part of your gift and your
No
legacy in the
question. And I
world.
still
Yeah.
might, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying I'm not going to do that. I just will leave you with the biggest wisdom that I've gotten out of this is I've done so much by myself over these years. You know, it's all been me. And, you know, it's like that whole cliche of, you know, if you want to do something fast, do it alone. If you want to do something far, do it with people and together.
Mm.
And I think the biggest shift that's happened with me in the last 4 to 6 months is several things. Is, you know, I moved back in with the mother of my children, not in a romantic way, but as a family. And she's been incredibly supportive financially, emotionally, all whatever way you person could be. And I'm now have a job that's incredible with this man I've known for 10 years who is doing this wellness sanctuary hotel. And even though I'm not having the full potential of my money right now, he's sponsoring all my swims. So these swims cost $6,000. He's paying for the swims, and now we're going to do a fundraiser. So I'm going to raise money for each swim towards whatever causes we want to do. So now there's the power of that. So that's something I could not have done alone. This house and reuniting with that, I could not have done that alone. So my wisdom right now is I don't want to do anything alone right now. And it might look like swimming is a lone sport because I'm out there. It's not. That's the irony. It's not. I'm not alone. I'm swimming with people in the ocean 3 times a week. So I'm swimming with them. So I'm feeding off their energy. You know, 2 people didn't want to go in the other day. Me and this other guy went in. If he didn't want to go in, yes, I would have gone in, but you understand? And I have kayak supporters with me when I do the long swims. I have a boat with me. I have a coach. I have people I talk to. I'm not doing this alone. It looks like a solo sport because I'm out there by myself. So the biggest wisdom is it's great. I love being alone. I love cultivating things alone. I'm more creative when I'm alone, but I'm interested now in the long game. I'm interested in I'm giving up getting these quick fixes of making this great drink or doing this food and getting that instant reaction, as opposed to, oh no, this is 3, 4, 5 years now. This isn't just you're going to get high in a month, Yeah. So that is the biggest wisdom for me to share, is you absolutely need to find your tribe, your village, anybody. And the thing is when you are passionate about something and your force is that way, it will come. That's when you attract it. I'm not attracting my food and my drink as much as I used to because my force isn't there. Mm-hmm. But in my swimming, all these people are showing up without me trying. That's the force. And that's the force of these things. I am written in 3 different books on 3 different careers because my force was in there. Now it's the force that you put into something. Yeah. It's so powerful. And that can be done by an ordinary person.
Wow.
Thank you so much. Use the force. Use the force. And life is not a solo sport. I say that all the time. Yeah. I love that wisdom.
And it took me a long time to realize that.
Wow. Thank you so much for being with us today. How can people find you and connect with you?
The best way really is just my website or Instagram. So my website is myfullname.com. Instagram, I always respond there too. So my Instagram is @eatyourdrink. And I post a lot of swimming stuff there too. I've got swimming and food stuff there.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Also, there's
fundraiser. Is your
What's
fundraiser there? Is your fundraiser on your Instagram?
We're going to work on that. Hopefully, because my swim is not until September 27th. I just brought it up to them. So I was going to talk to them this week. I would like to have that live by July. I think that gives enough time. And it's going to be this incredible organization called Indivisible Arts, which is all these people, not just with disabilities, but also they have had hardships in their life, whether it's been jail or whatever, trying to create and have their lives back, and that there's specific programs that they're raising money for. So that will be our first charity that we raise money for. And I really feel between our network, we're going to really be able to make a significant difference.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. All of your info and links will be in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking.
You're welcome.
With us
Thank
today.
you for having me. I loved it.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for tuning into the Wisdom We Share podcast. We hope today's episode sparked some new insight, imagination, and practical tools you can integrate into your daily life.
Continue this journey with us by subscribing, sharing, and dropping us a review. Until next time, stay wise.